My name is Rhian Thomas. I'm from the UK, but I've been travelling to India since 2002 now on behalf of the university that I worked for almost 11 years. I actually worked in the UK university sector myself for a considerable amount of time and travelled to India for, as I say, for almost 10 years. Loved the country so much that I actually decided 3 years ago to move to India. So I now work in India for the Chopras as Director of International Relations, helping Indian students make the right choices about their future education options and potential career paths. Today's webinar, focusing on pathway programs, will cover a range of different areas, and you'll see on your screen in front of you the areas that we're going to be covering today as part of our event. So the areas that we're going to be covering are, we'll look at what pathway programs are. We'll deal with some of the common misconceptions about pathways, because I think it actually, there are a lot of misconceptions out there about pathways, so we'll try and address some of those misconceptions as we go through. We'll look at the different types of pathways that are available, because there are a wide range of different pathways available to suit a wide range of students. We'll also look at the upcoming pathway opportunities, so the opportunities that are available in the next few months for students that may be ready right now to start a course. And we'll also look at the transnational pathway opportunities before we end, which are essentially those opportunities for students that want to spend some of their time in India and the rest of their time in the UK. Okay, so just a little background on pathway programs. Pathway programs today are actually very big business, and you'll find that a large percentage of universities, certainly in the UK and increasingly in other countries, are offering pathway programs to students as a means of getting and actually doing well in their degree programs. So pathway programs are actually becoming increasingly important and are becoming an increasingly popular route for international students to gain admission in an overseas university. So what are exactly pathway programs? What does pathway programs mean? Well, pathway programs are programs that prepare students for entry into an overseas institution. Pathway programs come in a whole range of different shapes and sizes. They cover a range of different countries, a range of different courses, different levels, so you get undergraduate pathways, you get postgraduate pathways, and pathways which cover a range of different institutions, including, I may add, some of the world's best institutions. So, regardless of the country, or the university or the course, the one common thing about pathway programs is that essentially they're all designed to provide students with a platform that will help them to accomplish success at university. Now, our focus today in this webinar is on undergraduate pathways and the opportunity that these types of pathways offer Indian students to get a world-class education at an institution of their choice. Now, as I've mentioned, there are actually a lot of common misconceptions out there about pathways. But before I address these misconceptions, let me give you what I thought was quite a remarkable statistic when I was thinking about this webinar. So just to give you an idea of the scale of pathway programs, let me tell you that in the UK alone, there are about 16,000 students taking pathway programs of one type or another. And there are actually reports which predict that in the future, the vast majority of students will go to an overseas institution through a pathway course. 16,000 students in the UK are studying a pathway program. That gives you just just gives you an idea of the scale of this business today and the number of students that are actually choosing pathway programs to get into a university. Now, some people think that pathways are really only for those that are perhaps not academically driven. Others think that they're a second-rate option for entry perhaps into a lower grade university, and that they offer limited opportunities. Let me tell you that the reality is actually very, very different. For many students, pathways are actually an ideal way to get entry into the most suitable course in the most suitable country, and there are pathways actually available in the range of countries, be it the UK, the US, Australia, and also the most suitable university. So pathways really are an excellent opportunity for students to get into some of the best universities worldwide, and that too for many into the second year in many instances. Now, if we look at the different types of pathway programs that are available for those seeking an overseas university degree, you'll see in front of you that there are a number of different types. So we've categorized them into two key types of pathways. So the first pathway type is what we're calling the on-campus pathway. Now, these programs are usually delivered on a specific university campus. Now, that could be on a UK university campus, a US university campus, an Australian university campus, wherever it may be in the world. And these on-campus pathways provide progression to that specific university upon successful completion of the pathway. Now, the advantage of these on-campus pathway programs are that students studying these programs are part of the university from the beginning of the pathway course. So that's the on-campus, where students are actually part of the university from the beginning, are studying at the university campus, and they progress thereafter to that specific university upon successful completion of their pathway program. Now, the second type of pathway program, and this is quite an interesting program, quite an innovative route, which I have to say is becoming increasingly popular with students, not just in India, but worldwide. And this type of pathway program we're calling the Transnational Pathway Program. Now, Transnational Pathway Program are those pathway programs that allow students to study for a specific period of time in their own country. And when we talk about transnational in the Indian context, we're talking about transnational programs that allow Indian students to spend a period of time in India and then progress to a university overseas to complete their degree. As I say, these transnational pathway programs are becoming increasingly popular for a variety of reasons, which we'll look at a little later on in the presentation. Now, the obvious advantage of the transnational program versus the on-campus program is that there is quite naturally a significant cost-saving element inbuilt into this type of program, which for many is clearly going to be a very important factor. Budget, always for students going overseas, is an important factor. So there is a cost saving and a budgetary element to be considered when thinking about the possibility of a transnational pathway program. The other advantage of the transnational program is that, and one of the programs that we're going to be focusing on later on in the presentation, is that this route offers the possibility of progressing to a much wider range of institutions overseas. So rather than having the opportunity of progressing perhaps just to one institution overseas, which is the case with many pathway programs, the Transnational Route, and in particular the Transnational Route that we are going to be focusing on today as part of our presentation, offers students the opportunity to progress to a much wider range of institutions overseas. Now, what I'm going to do before I go any further, I'd like to ask the audience out there, and there are a number of people logged on listening to this webinar right now, how many of you actually like the sound of the transnational route? Now remember that the transnational route is that option where you study for 1 year in India, and then you progress to the second year in, let's say for this instance, in the UK, and then you would finish your degree, so you'd study the second year and the third year in the UK. Now, if you could just answer, if you are interested, answer yes. If you think that this is not for you and that you would prefer an on-campus pathway, I'd like you simply to write no in your comment box. This is quite important for us. We'd like to know what our audience are thinking and whether they believe that a transnational pathway program is valuable. And we're very interested to hear your view. So if you think that transnational is useful, you think that transnational is a good option for you or perhaps your friends or your family, please mark a yes in the comment box. And if you think that no, this is really not a good option, then I'd like you to put a no in the comment box. So I think, thank you, we are getting some. I think a lot of people are saying yes, that this is a good option. I think we clearly believe that this is an excellent opportunity for students who, for a whole variety of different reasons, which we will talk about. But thank you. So that's a little bit of good research for us. Now, the next thing I'd like to just touch upon, having established what on-campus pathway programs are and what the transnational pathway programs are, is to look at some of the most popular pathway courses available worldwide and to look at the types of pathway programs that we're talking about. So what is it when we're talking about a pathway program, what do we actually mean? What are the different types of courses that students can take? Well, you'll see on your screen that we've got two types noted. We've got two routes. One is called an advanced route and one is called a foundation route. Now, the advanced route, I have to say, is probably one of the most sought after pathway programs available. The advanced route is commonly called a diploma or advanced diploma. The terminology can vary somewhat, but in a nutshell, what we're saying when we talk about a diploma or an advanced diploma is a course that is suited for students to do to get access to the second year directly. So essentially, the students would study the first year as a pathway program and would get guaranteed access to the second year in a university overseas at the end of their pathway program. So what does this mean? It means that students don't lose any time. They finish their degree in the regular amount of time had they got direct entry and not taking it through the pathway program. They don't have to take an extra year to study. And that also means clearly that there's no extra year's tuition fee. So the advanced route is an excellent way for students to get access to the second year directly of a university degree without having to take any additional years. You do your year one as a pathway and you gain access directly to the second year of a range of UK universities. And I emphasize again that that range of universities is the complete range. So you have some of the best universities in the world, I think it's fair to say, that offer pathway programs into their degree programs. Now, the second route that you have on your screen is what we're calling a foundation route. Now, the foundation route, again, I think it's fair to say, conjures up a range of potential negative images in one's mind. So when one thinks of a foundation, you know, people think of all sorts of different things. But let me dispel that myth, because the reality is that a foundation program is actually an excellent pathway for students who may not have done so well, let's say in their year 12, but who are aspiring for admission to a very good university. Now, yes, foundation routes do generally mean one more year of study. So if you were going to do a 3-year program, a foundation route would mean that you would study for a 4th year. But what they do is that they provide a student with an excellent preparation for their degree, and will very often mean that students can get access to a higher ranked university than they would have done otherwise had they not gone through the pathway. So some students would prefer to do a foundation route. Yes, it would add an extra year of study, but it would also mean that they would get into a far higher ranked institution than they would have done had they not taken the foundation route. So there you have the two perhaps most common types of pathway programs, the types of pathway programs that you can look at. The advanced diploma, where you gain access directly to the 2nd year without having to take an extra year, or the foundation route, which would get you potentially into a higher ranked university than you would have done otherwise, but you would take an extra year, which I have to say a number of students are very happy to do, because they see that this is going to enhance their opportunities in the future. Now, let me just give you a little word of just drawing on my own experience of the 11 years that I worked in a UK university. My university actually offered its own foundation program, and we had students from a whole range of different countries, including from India, studying on that foundation program. And let me tell you, it was quite remarkable that the degree classification that those students ended up with, so the students who actually studied the foundation, followed by a 3-year degree program, actually ended up with a far higher classification in their overall final degree than students who didn't study the foundation. So what that essentially tells you is that a foundation program gives you an excellent start to your academic career, and does generally, and I think research will back this up, that students who take foundation programs generally tend to do better in their university degree program, and generally tend to end up with a higher classification. Okay, so we've talked about the types of pathways that are available and the benefits, but who actually provide these pathways? Well, working with the universities across the globe, there are 5 large pathway players. Now, these are called Navitas Study Group, Into, Kaplan International Colleges, and Cambridge Education Group. These are the 5 large pathway providers who work with universities across the globe to provide pathway programs. There's also one more important provider that offers excellent opportunities for that transnational pathway program that we spoke about. And specifically for Indian students, and that pathway provider is called NCUK. Now, NCUK is a consortium of 11 UK universities that runs pathway programs in India with the Chopras Institute of Education. And these pathways guarantee access to the 2nd year in one of 11 UK universities. Now, let's talk about why you might consider a pathway program. You'll see again on your slide in front of you that we've got 4 key reasons that we think you should choose a pathway program. There are actually multiple reasons, and we've just picked out what we think are the critical ones. So if we look at the top one, we talk about progression. When we talk about progression, what exactly do we mean? Now, progression is a very popular reason for students to choose pathways. Students who may not, for whatever reason that is, have done so well in their year 12 and who now find perhaps their choice of university a little more limited because they haven't done quite so well. Well, these students still have the opportunity to target a higher ranked university through a pathway course, and this is what we're terming progression. Now, some pathways will allow students directly into the second year, as we've already discussed, after completing their pathway, and thus no additional time is needed. So the progression route is a very important reason to bear in mind when you're thinking about pathway programs, amongst others. We've talked about the range of different universities and courses. Now, pathways are an ideal route for students who perhaps don't have a clear direction on what course exactly they want to do. So for those students, pathways are a good way to give them the time, the space, and the knowledge to help them make that decision of what course they ultimately want to pursue. Again, students can go into the second year even if they haven't as yet made their choice about their ultimate course. In terms of the universities that students can choose from, path programs exist in a very, very large number of universities worldwide, and especially so in the UK. Students are generally guaranteed progression to a specific university, but they can also use their pathway to transfer to any number of other universities, because universities on the whole recognize the pathway route as a quality qualification. Providing a platform to change subjects and streams. Now, pathways are an ideal route for students who are considering a change of stream. In our job here at the Chopras, our teams often come across students, for example, who've gone, let's say, into engineering or the sciences, but subsequently find that the fit is just not there for them. So pathways for these types of students are an ideal way to change streams and move ahead in life with something that perhaps they're more passionate about. And the final point here is the transition from school to university. Now, personally, I feel that this is that pathway programs, or this actually is a very valuable reason to choose a pathway program. And I think that people underestimate the impact of pathways in helping to ease that transition. Now, the transition for some of you may not be great, but for others, that transition can sometimes be tricky. And pathway programs help students transit from their own education system, be that an Indian education system or any other education system in the world, come to that, to the education system of the host country. So if we're talking about a pathway program in the UK, this pathway program would help ease the transition for an Indian student and help them to understand the means and the methods of the UK education system when they ultimately move to the UK, that transition will be seamless. Now, I just want to ask one more question before I progress. We've talked about the different reasons that you may consider a pathway program. We've got 4 there on the screen. Now, this is a question for all of you listening again. Of all the 4 that you see there on the screen, I'd like you to indicate which one you think would be the most why do you think the pathways are valuable? So do you see the progression as being most valuable? Do you see the courses and universities as being most valuable? Do you see the pathways as a platform to change subjects and streams as being the most valuable, or pathways as a way of easing the transition from school to university? So perhaps if you can do 1, 2, 3, or 4, with the top one being 1, the second being 2, and so on and so forth. So again, please mark that in the chat screen so that we can get an idea of what you think the value of a pathway program is. Okay, so moving on to the next. We'll now look at the range of opportunities that are up and coming for pathways. Now, pathway programs start at different times of the year depending on the university and the course. So what you have in front of you is just a snapshot, a summary of the countries, the programs available, and the intakes. So you'll see that there are intakes in January, and I should add that the January intakes, there are still spaces available, and we're still encouraging applications for January across the whole range of pathway programs. So there are opportunities still available for January for those students that may be interested. So you can see there that we have the list of January intakes. If you are interested in starting in one of these countries in January, please let us know, and we will get in touch with you immediately to talk about the different opportunities that are available and to work through the application process with you. Now, if we move on to the next slide, there is one more pathway opportunity that I wanted to talk to you about in a little more detail. And that is the NCUK Pathway Program. Now, if you recall, I spoke to you earlier about the Transnational Route. Well, the NCUK Pathway Program is that transnational route that I spoke to you about. It's called the International Year 1, and the International Year 1 is delivered right here in India by the Chopras Institute of Education. This also has an intake in December, January, and again we are inviting applications for the December, January intake. And the program will be run in 3 cities. There'll be a program running in Delhi, there'll be a program running in Bangalore, and there'll be a program running in Mumbai. And this program allows students to study the first year of a British degree in India and progress to the second year of a business-related undergraduate degree in the UK in a choice of 11 UK universities. Now that to me sounds like a pretty interesting prospect for many students. I'm sure you'll agree. And again, at this point, I know I'm asking you a lot of questions, but that's fine. Can you please answer yes or no on the chat to let us know whether you actually think that a pathway opportunity provided in India that would allow you to progress to the second year would be useful? Yes, it is useful, or no, not useful. You can answer that on your screen right now. That's useful for us. Okay, now if we look at the programs that are related to this International Year 1 in business, the program that you can study in India and progress to the second year, the program is designed to allow second-year access to more than 35 business-related undergraduate degrees in the UK. So be that accounting and finance, management, innovation, sustainability and entrepreneurship, supply chain management, marketing, economics, international business, the list goes on. 35 different courses that you can choose from when you progress to the second year in the UK. Now, bearing in mind, you would start the International Year 1 in Business with the Chopras Institute of Education in December, January, and you would progress to the second year in September 2016. So you're not losing a year at all. In fact, you're gaining time. Now, as I say, students would effectively study the first year of their undergraduate degree in India, and then they'd move and do the second and third year in the UK. Now, whilst they're studying in India with the Chopras Institute of Education in Delhi, Bangalore or Mumbai, wherever you would choose to study, you do your first year here, you'd be given a solid foundation in the academic subject, and you would also be given help in understanding the study methods of the UK education system. The students are taught on an international curriculum using international teaching methods. So you will be fully prepared when you move to the UK in September 2016 to progress directly into the second year and to do well and get a good ultimate mark in your final degree. So if we move on to looking at the types of students that may be interested in studying the International Year 1, we've got the timing. Now, I've already touched upon the timing. Those who want to start the second year of an undergraduate degree in September 2016 will benefit from studying the International Year 1 starting in December, January. Otherwise, you've lost the opportunity to study in September 2016. So this provides you an ideal way to make up for lost time. You start in December, you start in January, and you progress directly into the second year in a UK university in September 2016. So that's a great opportunity for those of you who may, for whatever reason, have missed out in starting this September to make up for lost time. Now, in terms of the universities that you could progress to, there are actually a wide range of universities that include both the top-ranking institutions, the Russell Group institutions, as well as the middle market universities. So essentially what I'm trying to say here is that there is a wide choice regardless of your ability or your academic grades. So within the NCUK portfolio, and the universities to which universities can transfer into the second year are universities with the likes of the University of Manchester, University of Sheffield, University of Liverpool, University of Leeds, then you've got Salford, you've got Manchester Metropolitan, you've got Leeds Beckett, and a range of others. So the opportunity to choose from a wide range of institutions is there for students who study the NCUK International Year 1. The other reason that you may consider choosing the International Year 1 is if you haven't yet narrowed down your choice of business-related degree and still want some time to think about it. So you study your first year in India with us, with the Chopras Institute of Education, and then you choose from 35 different business-related degree courses in the UK for your second year entry. So a wide range of universities and a very wide range of degree subjects which you can choose from. The other reason, of course, we've already touched upon this, but I'll reiterate it because it is a very important aspect, and that is the cost element. Now, for probably it's fair to say for everyone going overseas, they will have finances on their mind. How much is it going to cost? How will I afford it? How will perhaps I repay a loan? Whatever it might be that you're thinking about, cost is undoubtedly a critical part of the decision-making process. So for students who want to look at the International Year 1 in Business, what I would say is despite being an excellent course for all the other range of reasons we've already outlined, for those where finances is a concern and for those where 3 years in the UK is perhaps a financial stretch, then studying the International Year 1 in India will save you potentially up to 20 lakh rupees on your 3-year degree. Now, before I invite any questions, I just want to remind you that there is an NCUK International Year 1 program starting in December, January that will guarantee you access to one of the 11 UK universities in September 2016. We've got all your details, so we will be contacting you, but please remember there are opportunities to roll in the into the International Year 1, and there are also opportunities to enroll into all the other different range of pathway programs that we have outlined today. Those which start in January are still available, and there will be others that take place that are accepting enrollments later on in the year. So that's just a little information on the upcoming programs. Now, that's the end of the presentation. What we're going to do now is take some questions for the next 10-15 minutes, just so that you have the opportunity to clarify any concerns or queries, and for our panel of experts to answer those for you. So we're now going to look through the list of queries. You just bear with us for a moment or so whilst we look through the list, and we'll start choosing some questions. Now, I have with me a pathway expert, a colleague of mine, Sandhya. She is going to help me with the questions this afternoon. And I have a question which has come in from Priyanka. Now, Priyanka is actually asking, can I switch to another country after doing this course? Now, Priyanka, that's a very good question. Sandhya, I'm going to ask you to answer this question, please.
Hi, Priyanka. Many thanks for the question. The question which you have said that after pursuing the foundation, can you switch to another country after doing this course? You have to, yes, you can pursue to other countries also. The option besides UK is Singapore. So you can pursue your first year here and you can start for your year 2 in Singapore or United Kingdom.
Okay, now we have another question here from Arpita. Okay, we have another question here from Arpita. Arpita actually is asking, what are the minimum entry requirements in order for me to enroll for the pathway programs? Okay, Arpita, thank you. Again, another useful question. What are the minimum entry requirements in order for me to enroll for a foundation course? I have no idea. Okay, Now, the minimum entry requirements in order to enroll on a foundation course, depending, I mean, I think the answer to this is it's going to depend very much on the pathway provider. Now, if you look at the foundation courses, and you'll recall that I differentiated between the foundation course and the diploma course, is that the foundation course you can get access to with anything from a 50% in your year 12. So some of the courses you'll be able to get in with 50%, some with 55%, actually some with 45%. Now, if you're wanting to go down the advanced route, and if you recall, the advanced route was the route where you study year 1 and then you gain direct entry into the second year, the minimum entry requirements for those types of programs are 60% in year 12. Now, I think it's fair to say that that's an excellent opportunity for those of you perhaps who haven't done so well but are still looking at targeting some of the higher ranked universities. All right, I have one more question from Sumit. Sumit is actually asking whether a student from a non-maths background can apply. Now, Sumit, I'm not sure whether you're talking about the pathway, the International Year 1 or any of the other pathway programs, but anyway, it doesn't really matter which pathway program you're talking about. The key thing here is that students from non-maths backgrounds, yes, actually can very much apply for these pathway programs. That said, I think it's preferable for students to have some maths as a curriculum. Certainly in the business courses does have some accounting and finance modules, but nevertheless, the simple answer to your question is yes, students from a non-maths background can apply. Now, I've got some more questions coming in. The next question is from Vishrut. You'll have to excuse my pronunciation here. I'm doing as well as I can. Vishrut Goyal. Now, Vishrut is asking, is the degree from UK going to be at par with degrees done entirely in the UK? Yes, I think I can safely answer that one with a big yes, very much it is. You will do your pathway program. You will then go on to the second year, or you will do your foundation and go into the first year, but whichever pathway program you choose, be it through one of the Into Navitas study group type pathway providers, or be it the International Year 1 that you study in India, and I suspect that that is what you're asking right here, even though I'm not clear. But if you were asking about any of the pathway providers, the answer is yes. And let me tell you one more thing. What you will get when you graduate, you will get a graduation certificate from the university which does not mention the pathway provider. So I think that answers your question, Vishrut. Nobody will ever know. So when you go on for your career, you go on to apply for a job, it will not be possible for your employers to know that you studied a pathway, or ultimately what they will see will be your graduation certificate, which will be a graduation certificate from the university that you have graduated from. So if you progress, let's say, into Manchester University, your graduation certificate will be from the University of Manchester and not from NCUK International Year 1. NCUK International Year 1 was just a means of getting into the university. That was a rather long-winded answer, I know, but nevertheless, I hope it satisfies you. Okay, we have one more question here that I'm now going to hand over to Sandhya. Can I go to any other country besides the UK? I think we've actually already looked at that one. All right. Okay, now we'll look at perhaps what somebody's asking, can I go to the USA through a pathway? All right, well, the answer to that is yes. Again, it'll depend on what type of pathway you are looking at, but in a nutshell, there are pathway programs that do give you a route into US universities. The International Year 1, which is the NCUK that we are running in India, doesn't give you a guaranteed progression into a US university, but having said that, that doesn't necessarily preclude you from applying to a US university. So in terms of the International Year 1, there's no guaranteed progression, but you could apply. But if you're looking at perhaps a route through one of the other pathways into the USA, you could look perhaps at the likes of Kaplan International Colleges or into a study group, all of whom are offering routes into a vast number of US universities. Okay, now there's one more question that has come in, which is from which university we have to do our first year. And what about liberal arts? Okay, so from which university we have to do our first year? Okay, I think perhaps you're getting a little confused here because if you are going to do your first year in India, you would do that with, if you're referring to the International Year 1 pathway program, you would do that with the Chopras Institute of Education. The Chopras Institute of Education has centers in Delhi, in Mumbai, and in Bangalore. You would choose one of those centers to do your first year, and then you would progress to the second year. I hope that makes sense. What about liberal arts? I'm going to pass that one over to Sandhya to answer because she's an expert in the liberal arts.
Hi Ayush, your question is what about a pathway in liberal arts? If you want to pursue your undergraduate in liberal arts, you have an option of doing a foundation which will lead you to pursue a bachelor's degree in liberal arts, or you can choose any other field like international relations or philosophy. So you have options available to pursue liberal arts also. Okay, we have the other question. Are there pathway programs for top running universities like Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial? Hi Vishud. Vishud, the universities which you have categorically mentioned here, unfortunately they do not have foundation courses to offer to international students. Okay, the other question which we have over here, for if there is a student who has done his year 12th in 2012 and he has been working with his family business, yes, you can definitely join this program to do your year 1 here and then going to UK or any other country for your year 2 undergrad degree. We just need to look up at your percentage which you scored in your year 12 and what you have been doing after that. So we do have an option for students who have gap years or who have done their undergraduation from year 1, who have done their undergrad and not really happy with their current program here. So you can also join this program. We have another question which says that can I apply from Nepal? Yes, you can definitely apply from Nepal. In order to pursue year 1, you have to decide the center between Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore, and the pathway provider will help you arrange your accommodation and will take care of the other basic necessities. So just get in touch with us, and we will definitely get in touch with you, and we would help you arrange in terms of your admissions, accommodation, and any other requirement you would have. But yes, indeed, you can join this program even if you are in Nepal or any other part of the country. Okay.
We have a question here from Deepa. Deepa is asking, are there any bursaries or scholarships available for students who do well? If you're talking about the International Year 1, Deepa, the one that you can study in India, then the answer is yes. There are some small bursaries or awards, whatever you may want to call them, for Indian students who do well. For instance, let me give you an example. One of the recent students who finished his International Year 1, he went to the University of Manchester. He did exceptionally well, in fact, in his International Year 1. He got admission to the second year in the University of Manchester in September 2015, and he got a small award as a reduction of his tuition fees from NCUK as a recognition of how well he did. So the answer to your question is yes. That bursary, that award, may not be a large amount, but it is there as a token and as a recognition for those who do well in their course. Now we've got time for just a few more questions, perhaps. So I'm just looking through them. How about Vishrut? Actually, Vishrut, you're asking a lot of questions. Thank you very much. Very useful questions. How about if I have to pursue engineering, are there any pathway programs for this course? Excuse me. Yes, Vishrut. There are pathway programs for this course. At this precise point in time, the option to study in India for the first year and then progress to the UK for the second year is not there in engineering. Right now, that opportunity only exists for students who are interested in business. But if you want to look at one of the other pathway providers like study group into Kaplan International Colleges, any one of these, there are a range of different opportunities for you to go to a range of different countries, into a range of different engineering courses, in a range of different universities. So that wide range is there. Okay, can we choose Australia? This is Gaurav Soni. Thank you, Gaurav, for your question, which is, can we choose Australia for a pathway program for the BBA? Okay, again, a similar type of answer to the one I just gave, Vishrut, which is that if you are looking to study the first year in India and then progress, the guaranteed progression right now after studying the first year in India is only to UK universities for BBA. There is no guaranteed progression for students looking to go to other countries. However, let me tell you something quite interesting. Our recent batch of NCUK graduates, one of the batch that has recently finished actually did go to Australia. Now, that was because he did the NCUK International Year 1 in India, and then he chose, for whatever reason, not to go to the UK. We helped him apply to an Australian university, and he actually got access to Australia. So the guaranteed progression is not there, but if students want to apply to an institution in Australia, then they can do so. All right, I think perhaps just one more question before we finish, and that is the cost. So we're talking about somebody, Rabi. Rabi is asking, what's the cost of NCUK? Yes, thank you, Rabi. That's an excellent question. I'm sure that a lot of students out there are wondering what the cost is, because we haven't specifically mentioned the cost. So the cost of the International Year 1 program, which is starting, as I said, in December, January, is 5,70,000 rupees. That's the tuition fee. That is a significant saving, as you well know, on a course that in the UK would cost you anything from £15,000, so let's say 15 lakhs, up to, say, 20 lakhs. So you're making a significant saving there, both in terms of the tuition fee and also in terms of the living, which you would be saving. Naturally, it's much cheaper to live either at home or anywhere in India than it is to live there. So significant saving for the first year for those studying the International Year 1 in India. So I think that we've taken a lot of questions. We've covered a lot of ground this afternoon. You've all been listening very carefully. I can see that most of you are still online, so thank you very much for listening this afternoon. I hope that you found it useful. If you've not received a response to your questions, because we've had a lot of questions coming in and we didn't have time perhaps to answer every single question, but if you haven't had a response to your question, we'll make sure that we get a response to you immediately, so that you have all the information you need in order to make the right choices about your future. So thank you very much for attending, everyone. I'd like to encourage you to keep an eye on our website, which is www.thechopras.com, because we will be having more webinars like this on a wide range of different subjects from a wide range of different speakers, many of whom will be international speakers, but all of these will be advertised on our website, so please do keep looking at our website for further details. So thank you very much, everyone, and good afternoon.